Hi, it's me, Stitches. Willkommen, bienvenue, and welcome back to my channel. So today is hopefully the long-awaited reveal of my Mary Poppins cosplay, gender bend. So hopefully you enjoyed the video. This video consists of the final vest and the hat. So unfortunately I did not get the shoes put into this video because I plan on later on doing an entire video of just how to change the color of a pair of shoes with a can of spray paint and a clear coat. And I'll show you the theater trick for that in another video later on. But hopefully you enjoyed this, and remember to like, subscribe, and share. Helps out my channel as much as it can. So go ahead and enjoy! So these are the patterns that we're going to extend for this vest for Mary Poppins. So what essentially I'm going to do is I'm going to get my wrapping paper out again, and we get our original pattern piece down and go ahead and trace out the whole thing like it's supposed to be, and then we'll go ahead and make our alterations. Okay, so I know that I want this to curve up this way, so I'm going to go probably about an inch. Actually, let me go ahead and mark center front first. And then I'm going to change this to Sharpie so I know where my alterations are. I want to go about 1.5 inches above the button because a 1/2 inch is seam allowance from right there. Now, as it starts to curve down, I want to straighten that out. So I want to bring this to there, because right here is where the buttonholes are gonna go. And then right here where the false buttons are gonna go. So now the next thing we have to do is take the over collar. So this is the upper. And we knew that that one came from here to here. So that center point needs to come down to here. So we need to remake this pattern piece. This is the original pattern piece. I need to copy this original curve. Point. That's going to be overlapped, so center front is right here. What I'm going to do is take this part
on, but I'm mainly just talking through my thoughts.
Okay, so now this piece is going to attach to here, which is then going to roll over. So I may want it to come out just a little bit further. So I'm going to take it all the way to the edge of the paper and go from there. So the pieces will need center front, the new center front, the new center back, collar, won't need this, we'll need side, going to need over, side, we're going to need back. Now I am not going to do the lacing, so I'm not going to do the lacing, so I need to remember to add a 1/2 inch because I'm going to close the back and then side back. And also in between the seams I will be putting piping, so that's a white piping that I'm going to add to Mary's whole outfit, including going around the arms, eyes, the center front collar. Basically everything's going to be piped out in white. And again, I am using Simplicity 9087, which I've used for my Belle costume. And yeah, so now the next step is to cut it all out. So this is the fabric that I want to use, and unfortunately there is a stretch to this, and it's a one-way stretch. So for something like that, you want it to stretch around the body versus down the body. So I'm gonna have to move my patterns. Instead of going like this way, I'm gonna have to go this way with the patterns. So, because I want the stretch to go that way. Forward this one. So get the center front on there first. See where I can get it to lay best.
Because I ended up filming most of it while my husband was home, and I don't like to record his voice in the background. But I also realized this is when I made my mistake with this pattern when cutting center back, and you'll see that in just a minute.
Let's see. Ah, shit. Well, I was supposed to leave a 1/2 inch there. I don't want to add this, so maybe I'll just have to move the center front when time comes. Maybe just a little tight.
So again, the reason why I didn't really cut any extra fabric is I didn't have any extra fabric. I only had 1 yard of this. But here it is. I'm sewing on the bias tape that I made for piping. I can show you how to do that in another video if you prefer, but it's basically just making bias tape, which I've shown you in previous videos, and then encasing the cording on the inside of it, which makes it into piping. Now I put mine through the serger so that I would have a 1/2 inch to the piping fabric itself, so that I could basically use that as a guide for my seam allowance. Unfortunately, in doing so, it does hinder the pressing process later on, but it really didn't matter in the long run. This one was my first piece that I did not serge, so you can see that I am laying the piece flat, and pressing the seam open after I've already trimmed the curve to lay it down nice and neat. I should really go ahead and apologize at this point. I did have my camera stand sitting on the ironing board, and every time I pick up my iron and put it down, I shake the camera. So I do apologize about that now. But right here, I have the back panels all put together with the piping in between, and I am trying to find the placement for the front panel before sewing it on. This, you'll notice that there is side seam piping, and this will disappear as the sewing goes on, because when I sewed this completely together with the lining in, I forgot 100% to put that piping back in. It really didn't change anything in the long run, but here's the shell of the vest itself with the collar attached, and I'm just basically gonna bag out the entire vest once everything's all sewn together.
So I'm using clips here because I didn't want to really stab myself with all these amounts of pins going around the corners of the curves, but make sure that once whatever device you use to keep your seams together when sewing, that you do not run over them with the sewing machine, and to always clip all your corners and curves so that it makes the turning process a lot smoother and a lot neater at the very end. By the way, at this point in time is when my good friend gifted me a snowball mic, and hopefully this will help better with my editing. And I've also transferred my editing to my computer now versus doing it all on my phone. So I really do hope that the editing process and the voiceover does sound a lot better than it has in the past, because I want to improve for y'all and I want to have better quality in the future. Just things I want to think about for this channel, and I really hope y'all appreciate it, and I really do appreciate my friend for giving me this snowball mic. But at this point I'm going and pressing out everything all the way around, and you can see that the side seams are left open. That's because I'm just gonna sew those up, and there's about 1.5 inches on the inside left over. This is for an alteration point later on if I need to let it out. All I have to do is open the side seams and then restitch them. It's a lot easier than having to move buttons, open a center back. So again, just another alteration point for the future if I end up putting on even more weight. Right here, I'm just putting the vest back on my mannequin that I have sized to fit me, mainly just to help out with the sizing of the garment itself. I could have put it on myself and pinned it, but it was just easier for me to throw it back on the mannequin, pin where I want the center front to be, and then pin the side seams to the right fitness of the vest.
I know this might sound a little bit cheeky, but remember, if you do have a dress form, you can use it for pressing. It doesn't necessarily need to just be pressed flat. You can actually press it by doing this, let it set, and it'll keep its curve. So I do have to also apologize because I did do a Instagram poll on which buttons I should use, and I also did it in my shorts here on YouTube. But in the long run, I ended up getting button kit to basically match the rest of the costume. I used a little bit of the leftover scrap lace and a little bit of the scrap white cotton that I used for the garment and the lining and the piping. So this way it does stand out a little bit more and look a little bit more towards the costume itself. In order to do a covered button like here, I just followed the instructions on the back of the box. It was super simple. The hardest part is trying to cut this lace because it wanted to slide everywhere when trying to cut it. So if you've ever never put a cover button together, you can go ahead and watch this. It basically shows you step by step on how to do it. And if you already know how to do it, then I guess skip forward a little bit? I don't know. But yep, I just decided to use covered buttons versus the silver buttons that I had on my Instagram poll. And here's the vest on the garment. I have everything pinned in place, including the buttons. Now the next step is to actually do the buttonholes and sew up the side seams. And it's done. It's not that difficult of a pattern to actually get, but if you do end up getting it, please tag me so I can see how you do your version of the vest. And right here, I'm just overlocking the edge of the side seam so that it doesn't fray on me and I can use it as an alteration point later on. And right here I'm just lining up my pattern piece that I have to find where the buttonholes need to go. You can use the original pattern piece if you need. I transferred all my markings over to my alteration pattern piece, and I'm just using some tailor's chalk that disappears with heat and just marking my buttonholes for future.
So this is a different sewing machine that I now used to have on how I did my buttonholes. They were all automated. My older sewing machine is a little bit more difficult on how to do buttonholes, but I guess I'm gonna have to relearn how to do that, because this sewing machine that you see here, Brother Embroider, does not exist anymore because it is trashed. But right here, I am actually opening my buttonholes with a scalpel. You don't have to use a scalpel. You can use scissors, you can use a seam ripper, just whatever you use. Please, please, please be careful, because remember, you are using a sharp implement to cut through fabric. I'm using a scalpel, which I'm used to using multiple times. Just, again, be careful. So right here I am doing a stitch called a catch stitch, but my entire career working in theater I've known it as cross stitching the edge. So it does go by other names, but this is essentially what the stitch is. You're just cross stitching the edge, barely catching the lining and catching the side seam to lay it down. You don't have to do this. You can also do a top stitch if you prefer. But this is just what I did because I'm used to doing it, and I did it all by hand, and you don't see it on the outside, and just makes it look nicer. And with all the hand sewing done of the buttons and the side seams, the vest is done. Let's go on to the next project, which I ended up doing pretty much a wig for the look because I didn't want to dye my hair back to brown. So I just used a thrift store wig that I shaped and combed and curled to make it look like Mary's, but a male version of Mary. Right here I am actually just stitching the band that I used to go around the hat that I chose for Mary. And the hat itself was a thrift shop find, and it was only 99 cents for the hat, so it worked out in the long run, but you can do your version how you like it. I just liked my hat small. But here's the band. I used the leftover ribbon that I used around the collar and the cuffs, and some leftover bias tape that I had for the piping. But the hat itself was one of these wicker hats that you find a dime a dozen, and I got mine for 99 cents at a thrift shop. I essentially just hot glued everything onto the hat after I spray painted it white. And as you can see here, I'm creating the little lap band that the traditional hats had at the time by making a little pocket to hide the actual joining of the band itself. And then I just had some fun by gluing on some lace and some flowers, trying to make it look more Mary-esque for the character. And with the last flower glued on, here is the hat complete. So the only thing that we have left to do, I guess, is the reveal. Ta-da! So, what'd you think? How did you enjoy that video? So, hopefully this can be kind of a prelude to what I am planning in the future. I would like to start doing, like, YouTube challenges. And the one that is coming up, which would need to start first week of August, would be the Halloween challenge. There is one called the 13 Days of Maxoween, which I'll put the description down and where you can find it. But if I were to do that, I would need to at least do, for me, 1 week per costume. And in doing so, I would have to start August 1st in order to get the first video out for that first week. So I would like to do it as 13 weeks of Genderween. So it'd be Genderween as in like cross gender bending. And taking a female character and making it a male for cosplay. I have put onto my Instagram a whole poll of suggestions for you to vote. If it's still up, go ahead and vote in the Instagram stories. And if it's not, I'm sorry, but again, time. So I have basically 18 names, and I will put them into some form of container, shake it up, and then pull one for each week. It'll only be 13 of them though. So there's goodies and there are baddies. So there's the nice ones and then the villains. Disney characters, non-Disney characters, so on and so forth. And I plan on pulling one each week. Then day 1 is pretty much going to be doing the research. Day 2 is purchasing. Day 3 and 4 would be construction. Day 5 would be the reveal, if it works out. So if you are interested in that, please follow along. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. And enjoy the rest of your day. Tschüssi!